She told me, if you're unhappy, the door's right there. She never thought I'd walk through it, and lock it behind me. What she didn't know was, I already had proof. Thanks for the reminder, I said. And that was the last time she underestimated me. She had that smug little smirk again. The one she wore whenever she felt superior, like she'd just won some invisible game I never agreed to play. We were in the kitchen. She leaned against the counter, arms folded, freshly manicured nails tapping her elbow while I stood there with my jaw clenched, watching her pour a second glass of wine. She wore that short silk robe that clung to her like a second skin, revealing more than hiding. And not for me. Earlier that evening, I'd caught her flirting again. This time with Brandon, our neighbor, the recently divorced ex-personal trainer with biceps and no brain. She laughed a little too hard at his jokes, touched his arm twice, and when I asked her calmly about it later, she looked me dead in the eyes and said it. If you're unhappy, the door's right there. That was it. The last straw. No apology, no explanation, just venom wrapped in satin. And so I said it, my voice low, flat, dangerous. Thanks for the reminder. I don't know what changed in me exactly at that moment. Maybe it was the way her eyes rolled like she just swatted a fly. Maybe it was the weeks, the months of watching her slide further into this fantasy where I didn't matter anymore. Where I was just furniture in her curated life of filtered selfies, fake friends, and Friday night girls' dinners that ended at 2 a.m. She didn't know I'd already been keeping receipts. I waited until she left the house the next day. Said she was going to her mom's, which I later confirmed was a lie. Her mom was in Arizona. I packed only the things that mattered. My documents, my watch, my guitar, and my dog, Diesel. Left the rest, the house, the photos, the mattress. We both knew wasn't just ours anymore. But I didn't just leave. That would have been too easy for her. I changed the Wi-Fi password, disconnected the smart lights, the home alarm, and the streaming accounts, all of which were under my name. And before walking out, I left a single note on the marble island next to her untouched breakfast plate. Since I'm unhappy, I used the door. Let me know how silence feels. I didn't answer her calls that night or the next, but I knew she'd crack eventually. She wasn't built for solitude. She needed an audience. Applause. Someone to make her feel worried. 3 days later, I got the text. Where the hell are you? Did you really leave? I didn't reply. I just waited. I knew her too well. Day 4. She came home. I had a camera inside the entryway set to motion detection. I watched it live from my phone. She walked in expecting a show, maybe a fight, maybe a plea. But what she found was silence. Echoes. The soft creak of empty floors and the absence of Diesel's happy bark. Her expression cracked for the first time. She looked around like she couldn't place where she was, like her kingdom had vanished. She called my name twice, then she ran upstairs, probably to check if I'd really gone. She came back down slower, her phone in her hand, no doubt texting or calling someone. Maybe Brandon, maybe someone worse. But that wasn't the end. That night, I showed up at a bar downtown. Not for drinks, for answers. Because I hadn't just disappeared, I'd been watching, planning, and I had something she didn't know about, a video. And in that video, time-stamped, high resolution, was my wife Heather in our living room on our couch doing things no girl's dinner could explain, with a man I hadn't even recognized at first. She was too arrogant to think I'd install a hidden cam after the third lie. Too confident in her performance to realize the cameras don't care about charm. Now I just had to decide how to use it. But first, I wanted to see her face when I told her I knew everything. And I wanted to do it in front of someone she'd never expect. Someone she couldn't lie to. Her father. I drove straight to her parents' house the next morning. Not the usual Sunday brunch kind of visit. This one was surgical. Her father, Daniel, had always been a straight-edge man. Vietnam vet. Two-time heart bypass and the kind of guy who believed in honor more than comfort. He once told me, "If you ever hurt my daughter, I'll bury you myself." Funny how life flips the knife. When he opened the door, he looked confused. I didn't bother with small talk, just stepped in, nodded, and said, "You need to see something." I pulled up the video on my phone and held it out. He looked at me for a long second, like trying to figure out if I was joking or drunk. Then he took it, watched 20 seconds, handed it back without a word, and sat down in his worn-out recliner like someone had just hit him in the chest with a shovel. "Who's the man?" he finally asked. "Don't know yet. Working on it." He closed his eyes. I could see the war inside him, the old-school rage fighting the bloodline instinct to protect. But he didn't defend her. Didn't excuse her. That told me everything. "Does her mother know?" he asked. "Not yet. But I'm not here for sympathy, Dan. I'm here because I'm going to confront her, and when I do, I want someone in that room who won't let her weasel her way out with tears and stories." He nodded once. Heather didn't expect to see me that afternoon. Definitely didn't expect to see me standing next to her father in their living room. Her heels clicked on the floor like gunshots when she walked in, holding a bouquet of white tulips, pretending like she'd just returned from the farmer's market. She froze mid-step when she saw us. "Hey," she said, blinking too fast. "What's going on?" "Sit." Daniel growled. She hesitated, then dropped her purse and sat across from us, her eyes scanning me, trying to calculate, trying to measure how much I knew. I didn't say a word. I just tapped my phone, opened the video, turned the screen, and pressed play. At first, she laughed. A sharp fake noise like a door slamming. "What is this? You spying on me now?" she said. "Keep watching," I replied. Her smile faded by the 10th second. By the 30th, she stood up. "You really recorded me? That's disgusting." "That's what's disgusting." Daniel cut in. "Is what you did in that video?" Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. I stood up slowly. I wasn't shaking anymore. I wasn't even angry. I'd done all that already, alone in motel rooms with a pillow over my face, so no one could hear me scream. Now, I was just cold. "You said, if you're unhappy, the door's right there." I said, walking toward her, and I took it. "But you never imagined I'd slam it behind me and lock it from the outside. Are you really doing this in front of my dad?" She snapped, her voice rising. "What kind of man are you?" "No," Daniel said quietly. "What kind of daughter are you?" She turned to him, furious, red-faced, and suddenly small. "You've always taken his side. Ever since we got married, it's always been how's James. Treat him well, Heather. What about me? What about what I need? What you need?" I said, stepping closer. "You mean Brandon or whoever the hell that was on the couch? You don't get to act like some victim. You've been boring for years, James. You stopped trying. You let go of everything. Your job, your spark us. I needed more than this beige life you settled into." I stared at her. That was her truth, her rationalization. She didn't cry, didn't beg, just deflected, blamed, justified. I almost admired the nerve. Almost. "So, you traded vows for thrills?" I asked. I traded silence for attention. There it was, the dagger. I nodded, picked up my keys, walked to the door, and paused. One last sentence for closure. "I hope he gives you everything you deserve." And I walked out. Daniel stayed behind. And that silence, it echoed louder than any fight we'd ever had. The days that followed were strange. I wasn't sure if I felt free or just floating. Like I'd stepped off a ledge expecting to fall, but there was no ground, no impact, just air. I stayed at an old friend's place for a while. Derek, a college buddy turned real estate flipper. His couch smelled like cheap wheat and chicken wings, but it beat the poison of our marble counter kitchen. Heather kept texting. At first, it was all fury. How dare you do that in front of my dad? You humiliated me. You'll regret this. Then it turned to guilt. You just left after everything. You didn't even say goodbye to Diesel. I didn't mean for it to go that far. And eventually desperation. Can we talk? I made a mistake. Please come home. I didn't answer. Not because I wanted to torture her, but because I didn't trust myself not to slip, not to go back, not to let her spin another web made of half-truths and perfume. Then something unexpected happened. One morning, Derek tossed a letter at me as I sipped black coffee out of a cracked mug. She mailed this to my house. Weird, right? It was a handwritten note. Her handwriting. Perfect. Practiced cold. James, I don't know if I'm writing this for you or just to make myself feel better, but I'll try anyway. What I did was wrong. I can't explain it. I can't excuse it. I felt seen by someone else. And instead of facing our issues, I ran toward that feeling. But the house is dead without you. I walk in and it doesn't smell like anything. Diesel's bowl is empty. Your shoes are gone. It's like the soul has been stripped out of everything and all that's left is echo. I don't know if you hate me. Maybe you should. But I still love you. I always did. Even when I did the worst thing to the person I loved most. There was a time when those words would have broken me. When I would have jumped in the car, raced home, thrown open the door, and clung to whatever version of us I could still salvage. But not now. Instead, I went to get closure. I texted her, meet me at the old boardwalk tomorrow, noon. She showed up 15 minutes late. Typical, wearing that same faux innocent white blouse she used to wear when she wanted to charm her way out of trouble. But her smile didn't land this time. She looked tired, less glossy, more real. We sat on a weathered bench facing the water, gulls crying above us like reminders of better summers. I got your letter, I said. She nodded. Did it mean anything? It meant you can still lie beautifully, even on paper. She winced. I'm not lying now. Then tell me the truth, I said. Who was he? She didn't blink. His name's Tyler, a client from work. It started out casual. A couple drinks, a joke about how boring married life is. Then it just happened. It doesn't just happen. I said you planned it. Lied about where you were. Made excuses. You looked me in the eye and told me you were visiting your mother when you were doing that. She looked down. I know. You told me if I was unhappy. The door was right there. And you thought I'd never take it. She whispered. I didn't think you'd have the guts. That line hit harder than any punch. I stood up. See, Heather, that's your problem. You thought I was weak because I stayed. You never realized it takes more strength to walk away from someone you still love. She reached for my hand. I stepped back. I don't want your touch. I just wanted to see if there was anything left in your eyes that reminded me of who you used to be. She didn't answer. I nodded once. There isn't. And I left her sitting there alone on that bench by the water, surrounded by everything she thought she'd never lose. I didn't look back as I walked away. Not once. If I had, maybe I would have seen her crying. Maybe I would have seen her get up, call someone, or just sit there frozen in the guilt she finally let reach her. But I didn't care anymore. That was the difference. Not hating her, that took time. But not caring, that came suddenly, like a door slamming shut in your mind. No drafts, no light coming through. Over the next few weeks, I rebuilt pieces of myself. Small ones first. Started waking up at 6 o'clock again, just to run. Not because I had to, but because I could. Bought fresh sheets, a new toothbrush, got a haircut that didn't need her approval. Derek helped me look for a new place, and we found a loft on the edge of the city. Exposed brick, high windows, enough room for Diesel to stretch and snooze in the sunlight. One evening, as I was unpacking a box labeled Memories, I found a photo us in Miami. She had her legs over mine, laughing at something, I whispered. My hand was on her knee. We looked happy. I almost tore it in half. Almost. But then I didn't. I put it back in the box, slid the lid on, and shoved it to the back of the closet. Not because I wanted to keep it, but because destroying it felt too much like admitting those years meant nothing. And they did mean something, just not what I thought. She texted again one night around 1:14 a.m. I saw your new place in your friend's story. Looks good. You look different, happier. I stared at it for 5 full minutes, then turned off my phone. That weekend, I ran into her at the grocery store. No makeup, sweatshirt, and messy bun, no heels, no performance. She saw me first and froze. I didn't stop walking, just nodded. That was enough. But she chased me into the parking lot anyway. James, she called. Please wait. I turned calm, collected, silent. I'm not trying to win you back, she said quickly. I wanted to say sorry for real this time. Okay. I said I was stupid. I was selfish. I wanted to feel alive again. And I thought that meant something outside of us. You didn't kill us in one night, Heather. You chipped away for years. She looked like she wanted to argue, but she didn't. I miss you, she said. That's not my problem anymore. She nodded, lips tight, and then she said the thing that should have broken me, but didn't. He left. By the way, the guy from the video, Tyler, said he wasn't into drama. I almost smiled. You built a castle out of betrayal and thought the man who helped you lay the bricks would stay and play king. She flinched. You were never this cold. I was never this free. We didn't say goodbye. We just stood in the hum of car engines and blinking brake lights and let the silence speak louder than either of us could. She walked away first this time, and I didn't look back. A month passed, then 2. I never blocked her number, but she stopped texting. Maybe she finally understood silence meant more than insults ever could. I didn't need closure from her anymore. I had taken it for myself. Every time I woke up without tension in my chest, every time I left dishes in the sink and didn't worry about some sarcastic comment, every time I came home to peace instead of that fake perfume scent and cold shoulder routine, I started therapy. Just a few sessions at first, enough to peel back the layers. The therapist, Mara, was sharp but warm. She didn't cuddle me. Told me straight. You were loyal to a fantasy. Not to her. That stuck with me. One night, I went out with some coworkers to a rooftop bar. Laughter, dim lights, too many cocktails. But I didn't feel like an outsider in my own life anymore. I wasn't the guy wondering where his wife was. I wasn't the guy pretending everything was fine. I was just a guy living. A woman named Claire introduced herself. Witty, direct, said I had the eyes of someone who survived a storm. I didn't deflect. I didn't pretend I wasn't interested, but I also didn't rush. We talked. That's it. And for the first time in what felt like years, I didn't feel like I had to explain who I was or what had broken me. Later that week, I saw Heather again, not in person, but on Instagram. A mutual friend posted a group photo from a baby shower. There she was, sitting alone on the edge of a couch, smiling, but it wasn't real. I knew that looked too well. The fake social smile, polished and practiced. Her eyes looked different now, hollow, as if the mask she wore had been cracked too many times and couldn't quite hold together anymore. She probably thought I'd come crawling back. She probably never imagined I'd thrive. The divorce papers came soon after, delivered by her lawyer. There were no demands, no fights over property or money, just a clean break. It almost felt too easy, but I signed and I sent them back without a note. No revenge, no drama, just release. I celebrated alone. Steak, scotch, candle lit on my kitchen counter like some ritual to myself. Diesel sat next to me, tail thumping. No chaos, no noise, just freedom. Funny how a house filled with silence can feel more alive than a house filled with lies. One morning I got an email from Daniel, her father. Just one sentence. You did the right thing. Don't look back. I didn't reply. I didn't need to because he was right. She once told me the door was right there if I was unhappy. I took it and on the other side I found myself. Summer faded into fall and with it the last traces of her began to dissolve from my world. I didn't think of her when I made coffee anymore. Didn't pause at red lights remembering her laugh. Her ghost had stopped haunting the corners of my life. She was becoming what she deserved to be, a lesson, not a chapter I'd reread. I got promoted at work. Led project analyst. It meant longer hours and more responsibility. But I didn't mind. It kept my mind sharp. Gave me something that belonged solely to me, something she never touched, never manipulated. And people started noticing the change. One colleague asked me, "What's different about you lately? You look lighter." I told her the truth. I stopped carrying dead weight. Derek and I still caught up once a week, usually over burgers and whiskey. He was the one who brought it up that night. "Would you ever get back out there?" he asked. "Out where?" "You know, dating." I looked at him for a moment. Not because I didn't know the answer, but because I realized I hadn't needed the question. "Maybe," I said. "But not the way I used to. No more saving anyone. No more fixing broken people, hoping they'll love me better when they're whole." He nodded slowly. "That's growth, man." Later that night, I opened my closet and pulled out that box again, the one labeled memories. I didn't feel dread this time. No shaking hands, no lump in my throat, just curiosity, like peering into an old attic in someone else's house. I pulled out the Miami photo, the one I almost tore. I stared at it for a long while, then finally said out loud, "Thank you," not to her, but to the version of me that believed in us. That tried because he deserved closure, too. I slipped the photo into an envelope, wrote the words "past life" on it, and tucked it in the bottom drawer of my desk. Not destroyed, not forgotten, just shelved. Weeks passed. Claire, the woman from the rooftop, and I ran into each other again at a mutual friend's event. This time, she laughed at something I said. Genuinely, it was refreshing. No performance, no undertones. We exchanged numbers. I didn't overthink it. We went for coffee, then dinner, then walks in the park. No expectations, no masks. She asked once, "What happened before me?" And I told her, "A storm. When I walked through and didn't let drown me." She just nodded, held my hand, and didn't ask again. There was a peace in that. A few months later, I learned Heather had moved to a different city. Rumors said she was in a new relationship already. I didn't care. Not out of spite. I just didn't recognize her anymore. Not as someone who mattered. Not as someone who could hurt me. You see, when someone tells you if you're unhappy, the door's right there. They think they're pushing you into the dark. What they don't realize is that outside that door, the light can be blinding. And if you're lucky, if you're brave, that light leads you home. It's strange how life moves on. Not in a dramatic wave, but in tiny shifts. You start by changing the way you drink your coffee. Then the music in your car. Then one day you realize you haven't thought about her in weeks. I was at the dog park with Diesel tossing a tennis ball into the grass when an old friend Marcus approached me. He looked hesitant, the kind of hesitation that usually follows bad news. "Hey man, you got a minute?" We sat on a bench while Diesel chased squirrels like he owned the place. Marcus cleared his throat. I saw Heather. I didn't flinch, didn't tighten my jaw, just nodded. She looked rough, man. Like really rough. She's living with her sister now, I think. Word is she's not doing too well. I didn't say anything for a moment. Then I asked, did she mention me? Marcus hesitated. She said losing you was the worst mistake she ever made. I gave a dry laugh. Funny, I don't feel lost. That night, I thought about her. Not with pain, not with longing, just observation. Like you'd remember a storm that once knocked out your power. Yeah, it happened. Yeah, it caused damage. But you rebuilt stronger. I opened a blank page on my laptop and began writing something new. Not just a journal entry, a story, a fictional one, maybe, but laced with truth. A man who learned that love without respect is a cage. A man who walked away from betrayal without shouting. A man who didn't need to burn the past because he already outgrew it. It poured out of me the pain, the clarity, the quiet dignity of healing. I wasn't writing for revenge. I was writing to remember what it took to come back to myself. And when I was done, I leaned back, closed the laptop, and felt something unfamiliar. Peace. Real deep earned peace. Not the kind you chase through apologies or begging or trying to make someone change, but the kind that comes when you finally understand that the door wasn't just your escape. It was your rebirth. Weeks passed. The air turned crisp. Leaves fell. Life kept moving. And so did I. I started finding joy in the smallest things. Cooking for myself. Walking Diesel under amber skies. Waking up to silence that felt clean, not cold. There was no more waiting for footsteps down the hall. No tension during dinner. No pretending. One evening while grocery shopping, I bumped into an old mutual acquaintance, Rachel. She used to work with Heather back in the day. We exchanged a few polite words before she leaned in and said, almost whispering, "She still talks about you, you know, says you were the best thing that ever happened to her." I nodded, pushing my cart forward. She was the worst thing that ever happened to me and the best thing that ever ended. She blinked like she didn't expect the honesty, but it was the truth. I wasn't bitter when I said it. I was free. That night, I stood in front of the mirror for a while, not checking my hair, not adjusting my shirt, just looking. Really looking. The man staring back wasn't the same one from a year ago. He stood straighter. His eyes were steady. His smile faint but real. I whispered something to my reflection. We made it. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't cinematic, but it felt final. Later, I lit a candle and opened that drawer one last time. The one with the envelope labeled past life. I held it for a few seconds, then walked to the balcony, struck a match, and burned it. The flame danced, hungry, curling the edges of the photo and swallowing everything it stood for. No regret, no sadness, just release. The ashes scattered into the night air, carried off by the wind like they never mattered. And in that quiet moment, with Diesel sleeping behind me and the city lights blinking below, I smiled. Not because I was over her, but because I was finally home in myself. The morning after I burned the envelope, I woke up lighter. No nightmares, no pressure on my chest. No urge to check my phone, hoping for or dreading a message from her. Just stillness. Real grounded stillness. I brewed my coffee, opened the windows, and stood there barefoot on the cool floor, watching the city wake up. Diesel stretched beside me, tail wagging in slow motion, as if even he could sense the peace settling in. It hit me then, not like a wave, but a warm tide. This wasn't recovery anymore. This was arrival. I wasn't the man who got betrayed. I was the man who survived betrayal and chose to rebuild. Not with rage, not with revenge, but with silence, space, and self-respect. I left the pain behind, not because it stopped hurting, but because I got tired of giving it a seat at my table. In time, people forgot the drama. Friends moved on. So did she. But I never went back, not even once. Because when someone shows you who they are, you'd be a fool to ask for an encore. The story didn't end with heartbreak. It ended with a man standing on his balcony, coffee in one hand, dog by his side, heart beating steady and whole again. And that door she told me to walk through, it didn't close behind me. It opened to the rest of my. She told me the door was right there. What she never understood, was that on the other side of that door, I didn't lose my life. I found it.